Welcome to Austin Stories, Entitled People and Karen's edition. Today, Karens try to steal dogs and lie to OP, thinking they're going to get away with it. What does OP do to get back at the Karen? And then a Karen who assumes a thing or two about OP and the kids. Does she get called out? Also, all videos are available in podcast form. Search for the Austin Stories podcast on your local provider or check the description of this video for a link. Get ready. Entitled woman tries to take my dog from me. Has no idea that I'm friendly with the local business owners. Posted by Man at Arms 1989. I had someone once tried to take my blue heeler, Sophie, from me when I was out in town with her. Background. At the time of the story, I was 19 and my younger brother was 6. I'd take Sophie out with me and pick him up from school, and then we go to the restaurant next to where my father worked as a pharmacist. When my father was done at work, about an hour after we got there, we'd all carpool home together. The little brother would take his food to the little arcade machine that they had in the back and blow his allowance on it, and I'd go outside to eat with Sophie while reading on my tablet. It was a nice little mom and pop ice cream parlor and restaurant. It's been around since the early 1930s, and it's across the street from a rather well-known local tourist attraction. We knew the owners, and they liked her, often spoiling her with food that was either turned away or just stuff that they couldn't sell that day. The owner's wife would often spoil Sophie with free ice cream or a piece of saltwater taffy. The story. The little brother had had half a day on the day this had happened, so we'd gotten there right as the lunch crowd was leaving. I leashed Sophie to an outdoor table at the restaurant while my little brother and I went inside to order, as per our usual routine. The owners had no problem with it, as we were on good terms at the time, and well, we still are. Sophie wasn't aggressive, and I was on first-name basis with most of the staff who adored her. Now, most of them were either still in high school or just graduated and picking up a first-time job. I go to place our order, including something for Sophie to eat, and halfway through our order, the server points behind me and says in a panicked voice, "Someone's trying to grab Sophie." I dropped what I was doing, turned around, and saw this heavy-set lady trying to corral Sophie around the table, with one hand on her leash and the other hand trying to grab her collar. I'd had people ask me if she was for sale before. She was and still is a very beautiful dog, even at 16 years old now. But nobody had tried to just take her before this. I rushed toward the door and threw it open so hard it nearly cracked the glass pane. Meanwhile, the cashier was calling the owner out of the back of the kitchen. After I got out the door, I demanded, "The heck are you messing with my dog for?" The lady responded with a sweet voice, "Well, I was just going to take her home." Like she wasn't just trying to steal someone's beloved pet. I lost my crap, and I screamed at her, "You get your hands away from my dog, or there's going to be police involved, and it won't be for you." I was, and still am, a big guy. I'm 6 feet 1 inches and about 280 pounds. She jerked her hand away like she'd been stung, but decided to try and start ranting at me about how, "You obviously don't care for the poor thing if you're leaving it tied out here in the sun. You don't deserve this sweet little thing." The nerve of this lady. She'd been caught red-handed and she was still trying to get my dog. At this point, I'd had it. "Lady," I started in a low growl, trying and failing to keep calm. I've had anger management issues since I was small, so this wasn't easy. "She's in a shady area, and I set a bowl of water down for her, which she hasn't even touched yet. I'd been in the restaurant for about a minute before you decided to try and abduct her, and we eat outside of this establishment all the time." At this point, I was about ready to explode, but I kept as calm as I could as I grabbed Sophie's leash and unclipped it from the table. She immediately hid behind me, and I tried to back off, but this entitled lady wasn't done yet. "You don't deserve such a beautiful dog. I want her for my kids to play with," she demanded. At this, I sensed an opening to de-escalate the situation. "That's a terrible idea," I started, having an idea on how to get out of this situation. "This breed is notorious for being bad with kids." This is true with the breed, but not with Sophie. She's always loved kids, and she's mixed with Australian Shepherd, which are generally great with kids in my experience. But this lady didn't need to know that. "What are you talking about? She's been so friendly every time you're down here." This raised every alarm bell and red flag in my head at the same time. She'd been watching me and Sophie for at least a week or two to know how often I was down here and know our routine. She might have even planned this out in advance. This is a cattle dog. They're bred to work with half wild cattle and are known as healers for how they bite at the heels of people and animals. They're not like Lassie. I started ranting. And to be honest, I never knew if she understood that reference. And it doesn't matter anyway. This is my dog and you're not getting her. Now leave us alone before the police get here. The staff have already called them. This was a bluff. I had no idea what the staff were doing. But it made her stop for a minute. And that was long enough for me to get back to the door and open it before asking the owner, who had come out of the back, "Hey owner," I'm not using his real name without permission, "mind if I wait in here with Sophie for a bit? Someone just tried to take her while she was out front." The owner took one look at me and at Sophie trying to hide from the lady and replied, "Head into the back. I'll let you know when it's safe." I took Sophie and headed back into the area next to the arcade machine where she cuddled up to my little brother, who she's always been attached to. Meanwhile, I heard the owner start telling the lady off. She even tried to claim I stole her dog. The conversation went like this. "He just took my dog." "Nice try, but he's a regular customer and he's had that dog for 2 years now. I've known her since she was a puppy." "I'm not leaving until I get that dog." The owner, in the most quiet, soft, and collected voice I'd ever heard him use. It honestly made him more intimidating. I'd never seen him get angry before, and it was terrifying. "No, you're leaving right now. We have you on camera trying to take his dog." "This isn't over. I want to speak with the owner." "Yes, it is. I'm the owner, and you're banned, both from my store," for some reason he never called it a restaurant, "and all other stores in town." "You can't do that. You have no authority." "Yes, I can. I'm the head of the local council, and I'm making sure they all see what you did. If you leave now, you should get away before his father gets here. I've already called him, and he's not a nice man when his family is threatened." This was a bluff. He never called my father, but I didn't learn that until years later. Dad was a true Papa Bear when it came to us kids, even threatening the local deputy once when he came into our house when he wasn't home. This was what finally broke her, but she wasn't going to leave before getting in one last blustering half threat. "Fine, I'll leave, but this isn't the end of this," after which she stormed out. It turned out that was the end of it. The lady got kicked out of all the local-owned stores and had to do all her shopping at a chain store in the next town. She later moved out of the area when people found out what type of person she was and stopped being nice to her. Nowadays, the ice cream shop has been sold to new owners. The old owners retired a few years later and are now living a comfortable life in the Washington Peninsula. I still talk with them online every now and then. I gave the wife my reading tablet so she could enjoy her books more often as a retirement present. My father's also retired and spends most of his time around town, hanging out and playing with his friends in a blues band. And my brother and I work at a local grocer. Sophie still likes kids and the sweet things in life, but we've had to cut back on how much she gets. She's getting old and having trouble getting around now. For all pet owners out there, I'll say this. Get your animal licensed and chipped if possible. If you can't get them licensed, keep a photo and vet records of them for when you have to prove it's your animal. And never make my mistake and leave your pet unattended in a public place. Man, OP, the tough part of this story is that everything was fine until it wasn't. You trusted all the people around you, and because one thing changes in the routine, a crazy Karen comes and tries to take your animal. And not to mention, the part that was crazy here was that she unknowingly outed herself as a spy, kind of, because she was saying, well, I know this is your routine. Well, how do you know that's OP's routine unless you were spying on him at a different time? You see him at this new time that he's at the store, and then you go there? This is all just very fishy to be spying on OP and his dog, attending at a different time, you going there too. I don't think this Karen, I don't trust this Karen at all with my animal. I would not let her. If she's going to go spy on OP, say this is my dog, not his, lying about that, outright just trying to take it in the first place, OP, you kept your composure and you're cool. You did the right thing. You let the owners know. I'm glad they had your back because this Karen is absolutely mental. Way to go, OP. Now, these next two stories are by the same OP and they're kind of connected, so get ready for this. You want my dog? Posted by ULFR. Well, I think it's fairly safe to assume that I've lost a couple of friends over this, but it wasn't me what did it. This weekend, a friend of mine asked me to keep an eye on her two kids while she and her hubby went away for the weekend for some couple time. Her mother was initially going to watch the kids, but that fell through on short notice. She called me at 3 p.m. on a Friday to come over in 3 hours. My friend knew that I probably wasn't doing anything, which was both hurtful and accurate. I said, sure. She's got two kids, a girl who is 8 and a boy who is 5. They're good kids, for the most part. The boy has a little bit of a snitching problem and the girl has a sharing problem, but it's 2 days. So I show up Friday after work while my friend gives me the rundown and her husband tells the kids that he will beat them with their sibling if they're bad. The kids were unimpressed. The parents leave and it's just me and the kids in the house, and it's immediate pandemonium. The brother snitches on his sister for taking an extra cookie. The sister cries to me that her brother touched her Switch, and I make the executive decision that they've got too much energy, and if they're tuckered out, they'll hopefully chill. So I asked the kids to track down bathing suits because we're going to my gym, which has a pool and a guest policy. I did let Mom know what we were up to before we left, and I asked if it was okay if I brought my dog over. He doesn't shed and is house trained. She said that was fine. Operation Pool was a great success, though the locker room got a bit dicey. That's a whole other story coming up in a minute. Once everyone was appropriately tired, including me, we made a pit stop on the way back to their house to grab my pooch. He's extremely well behaved and loves kids, and both kids were immediately all about the Dexter, and the Dexter was all about the kids. Ground rules. No pulling on his fur, and he goes where he wants. Kids kind of struggle with the notion that a dog is not a toy. I obviously kept him out of places where he wasn't supposed to go, but I'm a grown-up, allegedly. Miraculously, after the swim and chasing the dog around the house left the kids too pooped to pop, and both fell asleep watching a Disney film on the TV. After the movie, I woke the kids up to trot off to bed, and I didn't make them brush their teeth. For the record, the son did indeed yeet me under a bus when Mommy called in the morning. I told the kiddos that if they left their doors open, Dexter might sneak in and give them cuddles. I increased the likelihood of this by sleeping on the couch and not leaving him a spot. He expressed his displeasure with me by flouncing off and going into the boys' room to sleep. Great success. Saturday, we went for a hike in the morning, had a nap, and then played ball with the dog and generally had a pretty chill day. Diffused the sharing issue by explaining to the girl that the pup has feelings and wants just like any person, and she can't control him that way. She appeared thoughtful, and then immediately started yelling at her brother for hogging the dog again. At least she wasn't mad at the dog. I successfully heated up the casserole Mom had left me for dinner following her carefully laid out instructions, admonished the kids to not give him people food, and was soundly ignored. I did draw the line at a couple morsels from each kid and put my foot down. More than that, and he's gonna get the runs, and nobody wants that. That night, I made sure Sis got a turn by again hogging the couch and also closing the boy's door, since he got a turn already. The girl was smug. The boy made me call his mom. Mom wasn't happy that my dog was in her kids' beds. I reminded her that he doesn't shed and can't smell worse than the kids, and her daughter might burn the house down with us inside if she doesn't get a turn. Mom accepted defeat. Saturday night was again relatively peaceful, though toothbrushing did happen. Early Sunday morning, I got woken up by having my dog step on my junk, which is a thing he's really good at, and he was mad at me for not leaving any room. I made room. Apparently, the girl tried to do something he didn't like, and he noped out of there. She wasn't happy about that, but was appeased by my pain enough to go back to bed. This morning was relatively chill, some more playing with the dog and some more team tug of war, and Mom and Dad got back around lunchtime and thanked me for keeping their kids in one piece. The kids said bye to the pup, and there were tears, and I loaded myself and my dog and went back to home to enjoy the relative peace and quiet. Yeah, I wish that it ended there. Maybe an hour after we got home, I get a phone call from a very frazzled sounding mom with the kids crying in the background. She says they need my dog now. I'm sorry, what? You don't need a dog, you need my dog? Well, like I don't need to come back and visit soon? You just want him? Well, the kids got so attached and they won't stop crying about missing the dog, and her husband don't have time for 2 kids and a puppy and more guilt-inducing word vomit that was having precisely 0 effect on me. Abso-fluffing-lutely not. Click. Still getting text about being reasonable and you have time to train a new dog. 48 hours of free babysitting isn't enough? You want my dog too? Not in this lifetime. Update. The parents offered to pay me for my time over the weekend, but the rate for 2 full days of childcare was kind of a lot. They don't have a lot of disposable income. It was an emergency and I had nothing better to do with my time, so I told them not to sweat it. My pup is chipped and is still sleeping off his big weekend, but he's going nowhere solo and I do have cameras up. I also texted my friend's husband asking him what the heck happened and why does his wife want my dog this morning. He replied back with a lot of question mark. Genuinely hoping sanity breaks out and we can move past this, but ain't nobody is pup napping my dog. Also, for those curious about the story of what happened at my gym's locker room, that's coming up next. OP, like you bring your dog over, the kids love it, they're having a great time, everybody's happy, right? You're going bonding with the kids, everything is great, and then the parents go and they're like, oh, you can't let the dog sleep in the bed, are you crazy? And you're like, no, it doesn't shed, as you told them before, and it still smells good, it's clean. And they're like, ah. But then finally they get back and it's like, oh, we actually want your dog, we need it here, you must bring it back. It's like, holy crap, the same dog that you were so against, you're now loving because your kids cannot go, they're just going crazy without it, and you can't calm them down. EP entitled parents, this is what you are. Way to go, OP. This is a family locker room for families, posted by ULFR. To recap, I was placed in possession of a pair of kids, 8 female and 5 male, on a turbo short notice over the weekend. On Friday, as soon as the parents left, pandemonium reigned, and I knew I'd need to get the energy out of the kids or I'd be dead by Sunday. So I had them collect bathing suits and we all went to my gym, which has a guest policy and a pool. I got the kids signed in as my guests for the evening and asked a bit uncomfortably what the correct thing to do would be, given I was in charge of a boy and a girl. The girl at the front desk laughed a little at me and said that the family locker rooms were down the same hallway as the women's locker rooms. Oh, it felt very, very odd walking down the forbidden hallway, but true to her word, there were 2 big doors, one that said families and one that said women. The boy kid really wanted to wander into the women's locker room, which got vetoed almost immediately. We get in there, and there's stalls inside for changing, basically a closet with a changing room door on it. Me being hyper aware that anything going even slightly wrong in relation to someone else's naked child is a very, very bad place for misunderstandings, I decided that we'd take turns. The girl would go first, get out of her clothes, change into her suit, and then come hang with me while her brother did the same. And then, when it was my turn, I'd best be seeing 2 pairs of ankles under the door the whole time, or someone's getting left in the locker room hung by their bathing suit. Happily enough, nothing went wrong. On our end, anyway. Unfortunately, while the girl was changing, a mom and her son came into the family locker room and looked confused. "Why are you and your son just standing there?" says she. "Oh, I'm just watching the kids and his sister's changing. They're not my children. I figured this was the safest for everyone," says I, thinking, oh gosh, no, please, it's Friday. She rears back in shock, raises her voice. "They're not your children, right?" "Nope, I just borrowed them so their mom could get some alone time with dad." At this point, the little dude is hiding behind me and the clothing rustling from the little girl has stopped. "Ma'am, I'm just trying to get them changed and into the pool. I can't take a little girl into the men's locker room," says I, thinking I'm not precisely comfortable in there and I can't imagine it would go well with a little girl. "This is a family locker room for families, not for babysitters, and who thought you were mature enough to watch 2 kids on their own? I'm getting you removed," says she, and then yanks her child out behind her to go yell at someone else at the front desk. The boy tugged on my pants and looked up at me. I think that lady is crazy. I looked down at the little dude and nodded, but made a shh sound and told the girl to get changed pronto. The woman didn't come back in, and the kids didn't wander off while I was getting changed. We had a great time in the pool, and I didn't see the kid or his mom while we were in the pool or after. Don't know what happened. There was a different desk attendant when we left. So this is a story of a Karen. Yes, she is looking out for the right thing. And I understand in the crazy world we live in today that you really have to look out for things. You know, you never know what's going to happen around the corner, around the bend, and especially with kids, it can be a really dicey thing. She could have told the front desk, hey, do you know about what's going on here? We got an issue going on. Although I think she just instinctively jumped to it and then just went off on OP. I do wish that we had a little bit of fallout answer, like if there was the same desk attendant or some kind of manager or something, because Karens attract managers, as you may well know, and just to figure out an answer. But this is kind of a crazy story with an entitled parents Karen right here. Entitled Karen lied to the cops to steal my truck? Click the video on your screen so you don't miss this awesome story, and I'll see you there.